Welcome to Battle Streams of Middle Earth, and welcome to Damian's hobby vlog number 30. Oh yes, it's the one you've been waiting for. It's Shed Vlog 2023.
One ring to rule them all, one ring to fight them, one ring to break them all, and the darkness bind them.
So yes, welcome indeed to Battle Streams of Middle Earth and to the latest instalment in my journey to Throne of Skulls. I imagine this is probably called the Throne of Skulls, the Road to Throne of Skulls Part 3 or something. If by some chance you haven't seen the first two parts, I suggest you go back and watch those and check those out. And if you're brand new here, please do hit the subscribe button, and at the end of this video, if you do enjoy it, make sure you leave a comment and engage, and there's a Patreon link down there and all sorts of fun stuff you can get involved with on our channel. But this is our channel where myself and Steve Crow do live streams every couple of weeks to help get the community kind of get together and clear the backlog, painting for the fun of it. And I also chart my own hobby journey, and that's what this video is. This is the last instalment in my preparation for Throne of Skulls, and it's a vlog that I think a lot of our regular patrons, a lot of our subscribers look forward to every year. So a bit of context for you, it is currently, at the time of recording, Wednesday the 15th of November. No, sorry, it's just ticked over midnight, it's late at night. So technically it's Wednesday morning, but it's Tuesday evening, if that makes sense. So Tuesday the 14th of November. That means that we have, Wednesday, Thursday, we've got 9 days, 9 evenings left until we head to Throne of Skulls. And now, with 9 evenings left, it's time to start on the display board. Should be fine. What's even madder about this is at the time of recording, or I should say at the time that you're watching this, I can only presume and I can only hope that you've already seen a vlog called The Road to Throne of Skulls Part 1, where I painted Gandalf and Eomer, and The Road to Throne of Skulls Part 2, where I painted 9 Riders of Rohan. And the reason I can only hope that is because as of right now, as I'm recording this, they're not finished. Eomer's done, Gandalf isn't finished, and I've done 4 of the 5 riders are done. So I'm in this weird situation again where as you watch this, you know whether or not it worked, and I don't, frankly. So it's possible that I just don't get those models painted and nothing ever comes of this project, but hopefully not, and hopefully you've seen that. So yeah, I've been building it up thematically is the hope. So rather than just trying to do everything at the same time, I've done a video about the heroes, a video about the warriors, and now I'm going to do a dedicated video about the board and any other bits, just to kind of finally reveal what I'm doing. And of course, it's no secret to reveal that I'm doing Eomer's Riders for Throne of Skulls. So a little bit of context for you about Throne of Skulls for anyone who doesn't know or is new to the channel. That Throne of Skulls is one of my 2 favourite events of the year. It's either that or Ardcon every single year. And Throne of Skulls is where I go all out for hobby. I love it, I adore it, and I try and paint up new models for it. I always try and make a display board, and I do fancy dress and do silly other add-ons and all this sort of thing. I really like to completely and utterly engage in the whole theme of whichever project I'm working on, and this year is no exception. I've been doing this since Throne of Skulls came back in 2018, and some people will know I've been lucky enough to have some great success there. I've managed to win Throne of Skulls twice, and I've got second ones as well of the last 4 events. So really love it, and I enjoy it, and it's nice to see the kind of efforts pay off and encourages you to keep going. So I mentioned last year, I spent a lot of time talking about how I had these projects built up for the COVID years, like planned Throne of Skulls projects, and I finally did one of them last year. I did the Erebor thing and the Wind Lance and all that sort of stuff. That was my Throne of Skulls last year, and the Arkenstein thing, which was tons and tons of fun. But I still had 2 more in the bank, and if you go and watch my hobby vlogs from last year, you'll see this. I said I've got 2 more ideas that I've bought stuff for and I've paid everything for, and I was going to do one of those this year again. I was going to try and do it, and I just ran out of time. Just everything throughout the summer just took far longer. As you would have seen in the hobby vlog that I believe was probably number 26. I think it was the one about teams, where I kind of reviewed my plans for the year. I'd given myself from August onwards, I think, no, from July onwards, to do that Throne of Skulls project. When I prepped, I was like, if I want to do this project, I'm still not going to tell you about it because it's a mystery. If I'm going to do this project, I'm going to need from July onwards. So July, August, September, October, November. I'm going to need 5 months to do it. But I'll do it this year. I'll do it 2023, and just everything just got away from me. I can't think exactly why, but extra nights for teams and laziness and maybe SPG the magazine and all those sorts of things. Who knows quite why? But it was just impossible. So I started looking into what else I could do. I knew in July, I knew in August that I wouldn't be able to do that project. There was just no way I was going to be able to get what I wanted done. And so suddenly I have a bit of a panic where I'm kind of like, okay, well, what can I do that's going to take far, far less time, but is still going to be super, super cool and super, super themey? And I ultimately settled on doing Eomer's riders. Because it's hard to remember now, but I decided on this, as I said, back in July, August, possibly even before that. I can't honestly remember, but I've known for a while I was going to do this. And there was a bunch of things that made me want to do it. Firstly, I had most of it painted. I knew I had a large amount of Riders of Rohan already painted. So that was a big driving factor. Secondly, I could picture a cool board, and it's quite a simple board, that's what we're going to cover, but the board, huge shocker, is going to be the hill. The models are going to be riding down the hill. And I could kind of picture that in my head, and that was cool. And then there was also the fact that going back into the annals of GBHL history, I tried to do this before, and I might put in a link or a little clip here at the moment, but one of the last videos I ever did on the old GBHL podcast channel was about me trying to build this exact board for the GT at Warhammer World. It was going to be Riders of Eomer against Uruk-hai, and I made a hobby vlog about building this board. I started building it, and I just ran out of time. I think it's pretty much my only failed project. It's the only project I kind of filmed and tried to do, and then nothing came of it. But I still put the vlog up because I'd filmed so much stuff about it. And it's been quite good fun. I've gone back and rewatched that to kind of as inspiration for this one to see what I was planning on doing. And I built some of it, and then some of it really bizarrely ended up being on a really simple little board I did for the Nazgul and the Nine for Arwen. That was my board just to complete a hobby bingo tick, and the kind of 40mm cavalry bases that I used, the cutouts I used, ended up on that. So it got repurposed. So I think in the back of my head there was always a part of me that was like, oh, I need to do that project. You know, that project it's unfinished business, and I want to kind of return to it at some point. So I think that was another thing. And then the final thing, and again, I'm not going to reveal too much just yet, is, as I said, I always kind of try and do a bit mad, something a bit extra and a bit the fancy dress and that kind of stuff. And I realised I found the theme, much in the same way last year I found the Arkenstone theme. I was like, I could be the Arkenstone, the custom dice could have Arkenstones on it. I suddenly realised what the theme could be for Riders of Eomer, and I could picture the fancy dress, and I was like, right, that's it, I'm sold. So those are the kind of driving rationale. That was the driving rationale behind what I was thinking. And then it was just about getting it to work. So my starting point was, of course, the War in Rohan book. I just realised I haven't actually brought my army list out, so I'll try and remember my army. And this, the Legendary Legion, which is called the Riders of Eomer. Also, actually, one other thing on it was that Riders of Eomer are historically not considered very good. You're going to Throne of Skulls, you want an army that people enjoy playing against. And all cav armies are super fun and they look cool, which is good for Throne of Skulls. But Rohan, people don't like playing against, right? Rise of Theoden, running away from you, shooting you to death, and then charging in and murdering everything with 3 heroic combats and fight 5 Royal Guard and all that sort of stuff. People don't like it. And I think people are often quite dismissive of Rise of Eomer, and it's precisely because it doesn't have those elements. You don't get all the 3 heroics. You can't get fight 4, let alone fight 5, because you've only got riders, you've got no Royal Guard, and you don't get the +1 fight value. You still get +1 on the charge within range of Eomer. So that neuters that a bit. So my hope was also that I was bringing an army that people would say, oh, that's cool, I don't see that a lot, and it'll be fun to play with and play against. So that's the kind of thinking there. So the army kind of writes itself. Obviously we have to have Eomer, Marshal of the Riddermark. I put him on horse, I gave him throwing spears because that was the way I built my model. You saw him hopefully 2 vlogs ago. I was really, really happy with that paint job. So the happiest I've been with a paint job in over a year. I loved it. Then he has to be the leader, so he's got to go in. Then you've got to have Gandalf the White. Obviously, Gandalf the White is going to be a major part of my scene. Obviously, you're going to have him. I'm going to put Erkenbrand in because I love the Erkenbrand model. We've got him. He's cool. He fits the theme. And then it was just a case of going to my collection, and I had one mounted Rohan captain. So I've got him. I've also got a mounted Rohan banner bearer, so I put him in. And then it was just a case of dividing the rest of the points behind Riders of Rohan. And in the end, I got to 30. So it's 35 models. It's got the 3 named heroes, a captain, a banner, and then 30 Riders of Rohan, and that's 1,000 points. So it looks mega. And what's super, super fun for me is the Riders of Rohan were my first ever SBG army. They were the army that I painted up to take to the doubles tournament in 2012, which is the first time I went to a SBG tournament at Warhammer World, or any SBG tournaments, where I met Tom Harrison. And I painted up the riders for that. And so these models have a huge, huge history for me. And I love them dearly. And I've painted up, I've had 20 of them painted up for, well over 10 years now. And used them in so many tournaments. And, as I think I said in my last vlog, I was actually pretty happy with how they held up. But it was really, really fun to dig those out and be taking them to Warhammer World again as part of a new project. So that was cool. So that's the army. Basically 35 cav models. And so you've seen it painted. The army should hopefully be completed by the time you're watching this, so you should have seen the models finished. And so I need a display board. If I'm going to Throne of Skulls, I always take a display board. And what's the display board going to be? It's going to be the hill. Fairly obvious. The cool idea I have is that there'll be a hill with the models riding down it, and that will be a bit unique. The other thing about that is a hill is relatively simple. It's a relatively easy kind of build for me to do in, I was always planning, well, I'll only have a month, so it needs to be simple. As it turns out, I've only got 9 days, so it will need to be simple. But yeah, that's the sort of plan. And so it'll probably involve, I always had in my head that it'd involve magnets in some way to kind of hold the models in place. And it will just be a fairly simple, rocky hill, and the whole point will be that it will look cool. And then of course, Gandalf, you've seen the Gandalf I painted, it's the one rearing up when he's right at the top of the hill. And of course, you'll need to have the sun behind it in some way. And if you watch that old vlog that I've kind of linked to, I was planning on having like a big kind of foam board sun coming out that would maybe have tissue paper, it would have lights inside and light up and all that sort of stuff. I hadn't really figured out how I was going to do it. I'm not doing that this time, but the sun will be at the event. And so you kind of then need to put the sun behind Gandalf, essentially, to kind of complete the board. But other than that, it's just a hill, which is fairly simple to do. So we need to do that. And knowing that I was going to have these models, particularly on a slope, I realised it needed to be the sort of board where things would be recessed. I don't often do this. A lot of my boards that I've done in the past, I'm not particularly good at doing the recess thing. I normally just have them all sitting on top. But for this, I knew that it was going to have to be dropped in, particularly if I was also going to use magnets. And I got real inspiration for this from definitely Sam Page and Mark Boyland at Seven Stones, who did this awesome Karith Ungol board. And they used the Warhammer 40,000 Apocalypse movement trays and then set them in the base and kind of covered them up. And it worked really, really well. And I think, and apologies, I can't remember who it was, I think someone else did it at Seven Stones as well. And I was like, right, squirrel that away, do that. And so I went onto eBay and I picked up these guys. These are the 40mm Apocalypse movement trays. And in here, I think you get about 35. You get 40 kind of 40mm holes in there, and they're split up into these kind of 3s and 2s. These were £25 when they went on sale. They're out of production now, and I got them on eBay for 26 quid, including postage, which I was pretty happy with. It was the sort of thing, I was like, oh god, if these are out of production, are these going to be like hen's teeth and crazy through the roof? But no. And so I've got these to put on the board. And another super special note about these is my hope is that these are the only thing I pay for. Which I know sounds a bit mad, but I noticed that my Throne of Skulls display boards, I seem to take it in turns between having an expensive board and a cheap board, and an expensive board and a cheap board. So my Dead or Done Harrow board that I made in 2018 was actually really cheap. I had all the kind of polystyrene, I had all the rock, and I didn't buy much for it at all, so it barely cost me anything. And Bag End in 2019 cost me a lot of money. I bought a lot for that, and it cost quite a lot. And then it was cancelled in 2020, and then in 2021 I went back with my Isengard Dam with my Ents, and that was all just foam I already had, so that didn't cost me anything. And then last year I did the Erebor board, which cost me a lot of money, and so this year I want a cheap one. So I was like, right, okay, so part of the kind of challenge and thrill, this hobby challenge I'm having, is also to try and not spend money on this and kind of make a cool board from what I've got. So you can actually see that I am surrounded by some hobby products. Some of you will remember, I've dug this out, found these little bits. This is the ghost of hobby projects past. Remember the Moria cliff and lake and stuff that we would have been documenting about 2 years ago or something. So I found those bits, and I've got all sorts of kind of foam board and everything back here to start playing with. But yeah, that's my hope, that I can kind of cobble together this hill from what I've got. I should also introduce where I am for the first time, because as it probably says, this is the shed vlog. Like, again, if you're new here, for the last, when did I start? Was it Bag End was the first one I did, maybe? Probably was. Was it Bag End? It might have even been the Dam, I don't know. But for the last few years, whenever I've been doing Throne of Skulls, it involves me shivering in my shed in the middle of winter, normally when it's raining, desperately trying to get everything painted. And there's been a bit of an update this year. We've had a bit of a glow up. So I'm currently sitting in our new garden room at the bottom of our garden, and I don't know quite if you can see, but there are you can see the light. There are lights on the wall. We have power. We have electrics, and just through this wall here, just through this wall, is the shed. The shed's on the other side of this wall. The shed now has power as well, and it's got a real light in it, so I don't have to run an extension cord down to it. But normally I'll be in there, and instead I'm in the fairly luxurious climbs of our garden room, which whilst it's not finished and kind of furnished yet, I mean the structure's finished, but it's not, it's not all furnished inside yet. It's a hell of a lot nicer than sitting in the shed. I'm not in my blink hoodie. It's quite pleasant and warm in here at the moment. So this it's one of these weird things where I feel like people are going to think the vlog's jumped the shark. So it's not the same. I want him cold and I want him miserable. Whereas right now I'm actually in the same geographical location that I should be for this vlog. But I'm in quite a lot of comfort, if I'm brutally honest. But quite where I do the hobby is another matter. We have our lovely log cabin, wooden whitewash walls. We have a new laminate flooring down here. It's not really perfect for polyfillering and textured painting and all that. So I'm not quite sure if we might still get a guest. We might get a cameo from the shed when I do some of the messy stuff at the desk in there. But this is going to be my camp. This is going to be where I'm operating out of for kind of most of this vlog, doing some of the measuring up and all those kind of things. And I'm looking forward to kind of getting stuck into it. So yeah, that's the kind of setup. And I think that's about everything. So I need to show you where I am with the project. It is, as I said, it's the, what did we say it was, the Tuesday the 14th though? Yeah, Tuesday the 14th. And as I said, it's gone past midnight into Wednesday the 15th. So this day is pretty over. So I've really got Wednesday night, Thursday night, and then a week. So I've got 9 evenings to complete this. And the display board currently looks like this. This is a sheet of foam board that I've painted Rhinoxide. That is what I've done for the display board as of right now. This is my display board, nothing else. The reason I've done this is because these movement trays are see-through. And I've got a feeling that some of that, there's going to be, basically, just trust me, I think there'll be some see-through parts of the movement trays that you can still see behind to the foam board. And so, before I went any further, I just wanted to make sure that the base that they're going to be on had a dark background, so that we don't see kind of white foam board coming through the board. So that's the point of that. So effectively, I haven't started. Just imagine I've bought brown foam board, basically. But that's where we are right now, with 9 days to go. And whilst it's not a simple build, when you've still got to finish Gandalf and you've still got to paint 5 Riders Rohan and you've got to make the board, it's still quite worrying. But I feel really quite good about it. I feel oddly happy and oddly excited. I genuinely love this time of year. Every year I like my Throne of Skulls project and getting stuck in, and it feels like Christmas is on the way, and you kind of do this hobbying when you're wrapped up cold and building cool things, and I do enjoy it. I've also got a slight benefit that this weekend I'm at home, so I've definitely got potential to do, it would normally be 9 evenings, but I've got a bit of potential to be doing some stuff this weekend to kind of break the back of it. So my hope is that, I don't really know, I don't have much of a plan yet, but my hope is that the board is kind of built, like the messy stuff is done by the end of the weekend. And that feels remarkably close right now, but if I can get to that point so that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday night, I'm just kind of painting it inside the house, that would be golden. But yeah, I think that's about it. I think we're off, we're up and running. It's very exciting. I'm going to start. There's 2 things I've got to do. I've got to sort through all of this stuff and try and find some foam and find some foam board that's going to be the kind of structure of my shed. And then I've also got to get all these movement trays and kind of lay them out and figure out exactly where my models are going to go on the board. So those are the 2 things I'm going to jump into now. I hope you're looking forward to this vlog, and I hope that in the next 9 days we create something kind of cool. Look to my coming at first light on the 5th day at about a week and a half's time. Look to the east.
And so I got stuck in, sorting through all my existing bags and boxes to find foam board, insulation foam, polystyrene, and anything else that looks as though it might be helpful for my display board. Then, once I'd got everything unpacked and organised, I thought that it might be a good idea to just pick everything up and throw it at a table. I'm not quite sure how this helps, but all the big YouTubers seem to do it when they build stuff, so I guess it must be useful for something or other. So, I started throwing.
Oh God!
If I'm honest, I don't really see how this helped. If anything, it made everything less organised. A bunch of stuff broke, I lost some of the rock bits as they bounced away. I don't know, I guess I did it wrong. It did make me think though, maybe this doesn't just work for building materials. And maybe I'll try chucking everything at a table before I begin each stage of the build to, help.
Stupid idea.
Anyway, once I tidied up and put everything back where it had been before I inexplicably threw it at a table, I was then able to find what looked like some likely candidates. Some 2-inch thick polystyrene sheets, some insulation foam, and some foam board sheets. And we were off and running. Safe in the knowledge that I had the materials I needed, I turned my attention to figuring out how best to arrange the army on the board. I began in the only sensible way, by throwing all of my movement trays at a table. Again, I'm not really sure how this helped. Some of them broke, they flew off everywhere. Not only that, but they're see-through, so it was a nightmare trying to find them all again. Anyway, once I'd found enough of them to complete the project, and realising I was no closer to knowing where to put the models than before, and that this had just been another waste of time, I decided to go about it the old-fashioned way, by arranging the movement trays on a table and moving them around. I don't know, call me a traditionalist. The Apocalypse movement trays are fun and can be slotted together in a number of ways. However, they're not completely universal. Generally speaking, you can put an infinite number next to each other in a horizontal line, but you can't really slot a group of 3 or 4 movement trays above a different group of 3 or 4 movement trays. The tricky thing here was trying to figure out how the riders would look on the board. The army had 35 models in it, and I was basically experimenting between having 3 or 4 rows of 8 or 9 riders, or 5 or 6 rows of 5 or 6 riders. Ultimately, in my head, I had already decided that I wanted the slope to be quite steep, so this lent itself more to a large number of short rows than a small number of long rows. I found that arranging a few riders of Rohan on the trays as I was experimenting gave me a much better idea of how the force would look. As I was experimenting, I was pleased to find that the movement trays actually contain a fairly well recessed lip, which means that the models can be tilted forwards without them slipping out. However, this didn't feel quite secure enough to hold the models in place, unless I went with a slope that was far less steep than I'd envisioned. I was going to need some magnets. Ultimately, I settled on an arrangement of roughly 6 rows of 5 riders, with the heroes to be positioned separately. With the tray positions decided and all of the models placed on them to check that the army looked cool, spoilers, it did, I then decided to glue all of the trays down onto a sheet of foam board. I decided to do this as I wanted to be able to experiment with the ideal steepness of the hill before I built the main structure of the display board. If I built the board first and then glued the trays to it, there'd be nothing I could do if I made the board too steep or not steep enough. By making my slope a single piece, it would allow me far more flexibility in the build. Even before I'd started experimenting with positioning the hillside, I'd decided that I would need some extra support. I knew I wanted to display the models on a really severe incline to maximise the impact of the board, and that meant adding some magnets. I began by punching some 1 3/4 inch circles out of magnetic sheet using a punch that my wife had lurking in her crafting collection. Once I'd punched the required 35 circles out of the magnetic sheet, I began the process of adding them to the board in the only way I knew how, by throwing them all at a table. Unfortunately, this once more proved more trouble than it was worth. For one thing, they went everywhere, but I'd also mistakenly placed a magnetic tray on the table before I threw them at it. This was the one thing I didn't want to happen, and it was a nightmare trying to get them off. Once I'd wasted a lot of time getting them back into the pile they were in before I threw them at the table, I started slotting them into the recessed holes in the movement trays. Unfortunately, whilst the circles were so close to being the perfect size, they were just ever so slightly too snug and had to be forced in, so I decided to cut them down to size by hand to ensure that they fit nicely. With the magnetic sheet glued down to the board, I set about adding magnets to the bases of the models. I used a set of magnets that I'd already left unused from last year's Erebor Throne of Skulls project, so again there was no cost and it was extremely satisfying to make use of some more existing resources. I attached the magnets using no-nonsense meter adhesive, a 2-part system made from a superglue and activator, which was recommended to me by Dan over at the Hobby Hour on the Miniature Realms YouTube channel. My process was to make sure the magnet was the right way round by attaching it to some magnetic sheet, then move it onto my cutting mat, spray it with activator, drop superglue on the base and pop the magnet in. It worked incredibly well and dried instantly. Highly recommended. There was a lot of potential for this to get pretty tedious pretty quick, but I stuck on the telly and got into a good groove and actually quite enjoyed it. With all the magnets attached to both the bases and the board, it was time to put all the models in position and see how it worked. Call me paranoid, but I decided to start with one model. Obviously, I chose to use one of the only 3 metal models in my army as my test model, because I'm a cretin. To the king! It worked! With that, and with time against me, I went down the route of no guts, no glory, and did my next test with all of the models attached.
Rohirrim! To the king! To the king! To the king!
It still worked! It was clearly early days, but I have to say that I was really impressed with how it was looking, and this test gave me a really good boost to keep going. Using the models positioned on the board in this way, I was able to work out exactly how steep the slope should be to hopefully strike that careful balance between looking cool and looking realistic, and with that decision made, I got to work on the messy stuff. As per tradition, I had raided the charity shops of Twickenham for an old picture frame to work as the base. Already having decided the angle of the slope gave me an idea of the size and footprint of the board, and the board was far squarer than usual, which meant I had a relatively small choice available. However, despite this, I was able to find a pretty cool picture frame with a smooth black finish, which, whilst being a little more modern than I'd normally go for, would do the job nicely. I started by cutting a sheet of 2-inch polystyrene to almost the same size as the frame to form the base of the board. I made sure to leave room for a sheet of foam board to be slid down each side at a later date. Next, I cut 2 triangular pieces to form the sides of the board and to which I would attach the foam board sheet with all the movement trays on it. As you can see in this still, I added a small ledge at the front of the triangular pieces for the foam board to rest on and to take the weight so that it wouldn't only be held to the slope by the glue. I also added a flat ledge at the back of the board to serve as the top of the hill where I planned to place Gandalf. With my polystyrene cut, I headed inside, where I spent a very enjoyable hour building the board. I cut 2 sheets of foam board that were essentially the same shape as my polystyrene supports to serve as the sides of the board. These foam board sides were slid right down inside the frame to give the base and the whole thing a lot more structural stability. The polystyrene supports were then glued in place along with a bridge along the top for Gandalf. I next added another block of polystyrene at the front of the board, which would support the foam board and form a nice chunky 4-inch cliff at the front of the board. With the main frame of the board now constructed, I was finally ready to attach my foam board base. Inevitably, the final construction wasn't the exact size I had planned, but after trimming it down a little, I was able to make a snug fit. The foam board was glued in place, and then I pushed dressmaking pins in all along the edges to hold it in place. Finally, I cut another piece of foam board to sit on top of the board and glued this in place, shoving a few offcuts into the gap to help cover the join.
Dana, we have a display board. Here is like the kind of fruitsy effort. So I believe you saw it all being kind of carved and assembled, and you can now see kind of what that has ended up with giving us. So here she blows. This is how big it is, and this is the level of steepness that we went with in the end. You can hopefully see the models up there. That's the kind of slope. I haven't got the full army on it at the moment, but I put some models on it to kind of give you an idea of the scale and to just see what the models look. And it does work. It is holding. The piece of foam board is being held in place. The model's being held in place by the magnets, which is really kind of cool and really exciting. But yeah, so here it is. You saw it kind of being assembled, but I'm pretty pleased so far. I've kind of sloped this down here to leave me plenty of scope to put my my banner across here, which is always which I think is going to say, "Look to my coming." At first light on the 5th day. That Gandalf the White Staff you've seen in a kind of previous vlog, I think. I'm hopefully going to mount up here as well as a little range measurer, which would be pretty cool. Right on the top up here, I've got one hole to put Gandalf on because that's where he's going to sit. So I've put a movement tray on there, and then round the back, what I did as I was building it was I realised there wasn't really a lot of point in making the whole thing solid foam. Beyond anything else, it was because this isn't particularly heavy. Beyond anything else, it'd be a waste of foam. So what I've done is build it. There's a kind of a large piece of polystyrene here, a large piece of polystyrene here, and a bridge over here for Gandalf to kind of sit on. And then all of this is hollow. And the point of this is that my I've got to put this up. I'll be able to keep stuff in here. I'll be able to keep like books and that. And these are my normal kind of trays, my model trays. And I don't want to get paint on it, but you can see that fits inside there. So that's the idea. I'll be able to have my at the event. I'll be able to have all my gubbins inside it. So I only have to carry one thing around with my rule books and my dismounts and everything inside that. So that's pretty cool. And then what I've built here is you can hopefully see there's a bit of paint. There's a bit of black paint around here, and the reason for that is, let me tilt it towards it. I don't quite know what you can see. I might shoot some close-ups in a second for this, but you can hopefully see there's a kind of piece of foam board here in a gap. And again, let me grab something. The idea of this is that I can now slide down a back piece into these gaps and into these gaps to hold it. So I'm going to have 2 uses for this. One of them is I'm just going to have a plain piece of foam board which will slide down there, so anything I do put in here isn't going to tip out the back, so it's just going to slide down that gap. And the other one is that I am planning potentially, and this is one bit I don't know if I'm going to get finished, on having something else coming out of the top of here. And if I do that, I will need some way to hold it in place. So I've put that in there for that as well. So I'm pretty pleased with that. And the reason there's paint on it is because I suddenly realised it was going to be an absolute nightmare trying to, well, as soon as I've glued these bits on, it'd be a nightmare trying to paint into that gap. So I've just painted the kind of the bits that are inside that area. I've painted them black to kind of do that kind of get that bit done, so it's all sorted, so I can put these bits in. So really pleased with how that's going and how that's gone. And that's mostly the construction complete. I'm kind of tempted, I don't know if I'll do it. I probably won't do it in all honesty now, but I'm kind of tempted to even put a shelf in here so I could have two things, but I think it might be a bit too late for that, if I'm honest. I think I'm more likely to just put my books flat and then put a tray on top of it, but we'll see. So yeah, that's that. So the next stage probably would be to put some polyfiller on it, cover the whole thing in polyfiller so that it's ready for kind of texturing and painting. But I've decided that whilst I'm not putting cliffs down the side, I am going to put a few cliffs up here just to frame Gandalf and kind of set off the top. And I am going to go through that and do it. And so that's the next stage. I need to build up just a bit of kind of very, very rough foam cliff up here and see if I can get that to kind of glue in place and hold in place. And for that, I've got a bunch of foam stuff, but as I said, I'm trying to use all my offcuts. And I've got these bits, which are quite fun. These are kind of old bits of aquarium rock that I've had over the years that are like, I've used different bits of this in different projects. This, if anyone remembers the bit of Dun Harrow board, you'll see like the back of it looks very similar to that because I found these kind of quite cheap and just cut them in half essentially. Yeah, so I'm using these bits here as bits of rock, and that's kind of handy. But also, I've got this, and here's a bit of a flashback for some B-Sime historians. Let's see if you remember these. I found this. Look, it's some cliff face and some cliff face. Anyone know where this is from? And some cliff face. And this is the board that I built. I guess nearly 2 years ago now, for the SBG issue 12 photo shoot, and it's the one that I built. Took a load of the Watcher in the Water pool and the Barley's tomb, and then I shot it. No, sorry, just the Watcher in the Water and pool, the long cliff, and then we took all the photos of it for SBG, and then I cut it in half and turned it into the smaller pool to take to the GT. Remember that? And so I've also got this bit, a bit of the pool that was cut off. So I've had this lying around, and it's that classic thing of don't ever throw anything away. And as mad as this sounds, and as much as this might not be perfect, I actually think this is what I'm going to go with, because this just feels so right for this project to use something that's been a previous project on here. And it feels very much in keeping with my kind of DIY approach to this. So I think that's what I'm going to go with. And particularly this one, I'm feeling quite good about this. If you look, this cliff even already has a triangle down it. So I don't really know what I'm going to do, but that's my current plan, to kind of now make a bit of a mess and try and reconvert this cliff, which has already been reconverted once, into the cliffs at the top of here for Gandalf. So that's where we are. In terms of our schedule, it is currently Sunday night. I don't know, is it the 17th or something? The 19th. It's Sunday evening. It's only about 7 PM, so I do still have this evening. So it is less than a week before Throne of Skulls. This needs to be finished Thursday night. I'll be going to Throne of Skulls on Friday. So I've got kind of 5 evenings left. And the board's in a pretty good shape, in all honesty. I think I said in a previous clip I was hoping to have all the messy stuff done by the end of the weekend, and that would include polyfiller. And there is still an outside chance I could get it polyfillered tonight. And if I can get it polyfillered tonight, that's definitely doable for getting this ready for Throne of Skulls, because really after that it's just covering the thing in sand and then painting it brown, and the painting will be an evening's work. So I'm really not too worried about that. But the downside is I've still got 5 riders. By the time you're watching this, you've hopefully seen vlogs where Gandalf the White and the Rise of Rohan are finished. But at the moment Gandalf isn't finished and the Rise of Rohan aren't finished. I've still got 5 Rise of Rohan to finish. So yeah, I'm a bit worried, if I'm honest. I think I've got enough evenings to finish the display board, or enough evenings to finish the models, not necessarily enough to do both. But yeah, fingers crossed we'll just kind of find the hours. But at the moment, I'm really quite excited. I'm very pleased with how this came out. The concept has worked. I love how they look, and yeah, we'll see. So who knows when I'll check in. It might be at the end of tonight if I get the rocks and the polyfillering done, or it might be a bit later. But that's where we are now. Feeling pretty good. Let's go! In a deeply mysterious and Jonathan Creek-esque twist,
as I was pulling my old cliff pieces apart, I found this mysterious scribbling from past Damian. Seagate? Gate C? Who knows? I don't actually know what this refers to. Did I at some point describe the Watcher's pool as the sea? Who knows? Well, I thought it was a fun little tidbit to document, and it's kind of made me want to go back to my old hobby vlogs and find out where this piece originated from. Around this time, my custom dice arrived from Counterattack Bases. I excitedly pulled them out of the envelope and, without a second thought, threw them all at a table. Oh God, they've gone everywhere. Oh, they didn't even land in the frame. This is such a stupid idea. Why do people do this? So I've managed to gather back together about half the dice I ordered and find them. Who knows, maybe the other ones will come up. But here they are. Here are my beautiful custom dice for Throne of Skulls. I decided to get two colours done. I got the black on yellow and I got the gold on blue. I think I'm a bit happy with the gold on blue, to be honest. I think they've come out a little better. Who knows? But they're pretty cool. I've always had custom dice done for Throne of Skulls. This is the first year where a teensy bit of me is a little bit sad, where every year I've been able to have gold writing or gold symbols and gold pips on green dice, and I just couldn't make it work for this. There's just no way I couldn't justify why there would be gold on green for the sun and the sky. So I ended up going with these kind of inverted colours, like the yellow gold dice for the sunlight, and then the kind of yellow on blue for the sky itself. But as ever, these were from Counterattack Games. Daniel turned around for me. Really happy to keep the tradition of kind of having custom dice for the Throne of Skulls event. Ready to go, and hopefully, we've got 4, 8, so there's 13 here. Hopefully they'll roll kind of 13 sixes like this. Should we have a cheeky roll, see how they do? Maybe reveal if they're entirely bent before we go any further. But let's have a look. How done? 2 sixes, there we go. 2 sixes, and wow, frankly, that is a miserable amount of 1s and 2s. So good news to anyone playing me at Throne of Skulls, these are loaded, but they're loaded very, very badly. So yeah, really excited about my custom dice, thanks to Counterattack Games as ever. And yeah, with that brief sojourn to fun stuff aside, let's get back to the horrors of making the display board. So hello and welcome back to our latest update. Give you some idea, it's currently Monday night. I can't remember, I'm sure I was filming a clip last night, but I can't remember how far I got. But these cliffs are now built. So construction was complete last night, which was quite late on Sunday night. And then I'm back out here to do the worst days. This is it. This is the night you're after. This is the bad night. It's the polyfiller which is the messy bit, which isn't very enjoyable and which takes a long time. And if anything, as much as this board is quite simple in terms of shape, I think this might take longer than normal, because the really tricky thing with the polyfiller this time is I've got to avoid all these holes here. I've got to avoid all these bits here that have got the bases in, because it's absolutely imperative that I don't get any polyfiller in that and fill up those gaps. So that's going to be the challenge. And there are gaps, whilst I could go up to the edge and around here, there are gaps in between here that need to come with polyfiller to blend it. So what I've done is I've got this tool, which I didn't make for this, but you can see here there's a 40mm cav base on a stick. I can't remember what I made this for, it was a while ago. A similar thing to this possibly. Much to my amusement, after I recorded this clip, I discovered that not only did I create the tool for, in my own words, a similar thing to this possibly, but for this exact thing. I created the tool the last time I tried to make this board in my How GBHL Damian Didn't Make a Display Board for the Middle-earth Grand Tournament video back on the GBHL. I really couldn't believe this, and it gave me another warm, fuzzy feeling that somehow past Damian was watching over me on this project. Funny old world. And what that will allow me to do is kind of put that in there and kind of get it in and out fairly easily if I'm polyfilling around it, which will hopefully kind of keep most of it out. And I've also grabbed a load of old 40mm bases, so as much as it might damage them, I might be able to kind of put some of these in here, kind of slot these around here, this sort of thing, just to kind of mitigate the effects of it, and hopefully that will help a bit. But yeah,
These are no doubt going to get into a whole terrible mess. But yeah, that's the sort of plan to do. So I'm going to crack on with that now. I was up extremely late last night painting a rider of Rohan and getting him finished. It's currently 11:40. It's late, but it's Monday night, and again, you're probably seeing this. I really don't know, sort of mid-December sometime. But to give you some sort of context, tomorrow night, Tuesday, we're doing the stream. We're doing the Rise of Rohan stream. So tomorrow night, I'll only be free to be hobbying out here at midnight, which is the same as this. And if I leave it till Wednesday, polyfiller on Wednesday, texture on Thursday, there's no way I'll get it painted in time. So sadly, whilst I really tried to think my way around this, I don't want to be doing this at this time of night, but I've got to do it at this time of night. And it feels quite appropriate for my Throne of Skills vlogs that I have at least one stupidly late night out here. It is cold. I haven't really updated you on the garden room, but we've got power out here, we've got light, but we don't have heating out here. And I haven't got an electric heater out here, but you know what? It's all right. It's not bad at all. It is nicely insulated, and so it's actually quite a pleasant environment, despite the fact it's cold outside. But it is late, and I am extremely tired. So I've hit most of the tick boxes for what I know of you like to see in these horrific Throne of Skulls vlogs. But we're going to get stuck in. I would love to finish this by 1 AM. I can't imagine that's going to happen, but I'm gonna get to it now and see how far we get, and I'll probably check in with you once it's done to let you know how we got on. So yeah, wish me luck, and goodbye to the board in this state. And when you come back, everything here is going to be covered in polyfiller. I'm in the shed. Oh yes, it's the bit we've all been waiting for. It's Shedfest 2023. So yeah, I am in here for the annual trip. I know a lot of people look forward to seeing a kind of slightly stressed out Damian in here, but it's nice, you know. It's here. You can see we've had some upgrades since last year. We have power now, so we do have I'm normally lit by a tiny little lamp, follow from an extension lead from the house, but we do now have a light, a strip light in here, so that's quite nice. Still no heating, but it's all right. And you know, it's cramped, and it's there's stuff everywhere. If I'm honest, I haven't been in here in a couple of months really. We had a crap summer, but I can probably find a bit of space to work in. But I mean, it's gonna be tough. But I just feel like I know that you guys want this bit, and I know how supportive you are. However stressed I am and how busy I am, and because you guys are so nice and supportive, I just think it's worth doing, even if it puts me out a bit. So, sorry, just got a message come through. Oh, it's on the patron chat. Larry Miller. It's not going to be the same though if he isn't suffering. I'll solve this. I'll go back to the garden room. And there we go. 'Tis done. It's complete. All polyfillered. I filmed a little bit of footage for you to kind of watch the process I was doing it. Do you know what? It's taken a long time, but I actually didn't mind that. I've been listening this time to the Andy Serkis version of Silmarillion, which is my first listen through that version. I feel like I'm always listening to some sort of new Andy Serkis Lord of the Rings audiobook when I'm doing these vlogs, but that kept me going. And it was an oddly satisfying process, and I think it's worked pretty well. Like looking at it now, I think it's not. You can still see a bit of a slope to the movement trays, but I think for the most part that joint's been concealed, and I think that I'll be able to help that even more when I add some sand to it to texture it. So I'm pretty pleased with that. And as for how long it took, I don't know what time it is. I decided to do this live on camera. I said I would hope to be done by 1 AM. It feels like it took longer than this. Let's see. Mother of God, it's 1:44 in the morning. So yeah, nearly 2 AM. So, oh God, it took me about 2 hours to do that. But okay, cool. That's good. It's job's done. Happy with that. Now I have the thing that anyone who's followed these vlogs for the last few years will know the fear at this point, which is this stuff has to dry. The damn polyfiller has to dry, and some of it has gone on quite thick in order to make the kind of slope up. So I'm now going to take it into the house, into a nice warm house, and leave it to dry. And my last little thing, I don't know how well you can see it, but is that, can you just see that there's a little bit of grey here in the cliff. That is the original paintwork of the of that cliff showing through from that off-cut cliff I took. And I know it sounds stupid, but I was like oddly fond of showing it. I think I did this before when I turned that long cliff into the watcher pool. I left a bit of the original paint kind of showing through, so you kind of see the history of it. So who knows if I'll be possibly able to avoid it, but I'm going to try and just leave a bit of that original colour poking through, so that I can know that that other piece of scenery's been there. But yeah, overall, pretty happy. Very happy actually at the moment. Now, as long as it dries, I think we'll be all right going forward. But yeah, I'll check in with you probably tomorrow or something when we've got a bit of progress on it maybe, or whenever we're going to do the next thing. Sorry, one more thing. I've managed the bases worked really well putting in here, and I feel like I've managed to avoid filling these up. And I've now got 2 more goes to go at that. I'm going to put, or at least 2, maybe 3 really. But I've got a sand layer that I'm going to put down, which I've got to avoid sticking sand inside, and I've got to do a textured paint layer maybe, and a paint layer, which could obviously make it a bit thicker. So 1 of 3 of the tricky layers has been done, and those bases helped me avoid painting inside it. And fingers crossed we can keep that going. So yeah, I'm going to go to bed, and hopefully I'll see you very soon with some more progress. Once more into the awful nights in the garden room, dear friends. It is Tuesday night. For B-Side historians amongst you will know that we have just done our stream, just done the Rise of Rohan stream. It's Tuesday, is it the 21st or something? I can't remember. I think it's the 21st. Finished that, and I've come out here. It's taken me a while to get set up, so it is currently 1:15 in the morning, and I'm about to try and do sand down on here. The good news, we'll come back to the disastrous bad news in a minute. The good news is the polyfiller you left me, I think I left you last night hoping it would dry. It's dried pretty much. Most of it, where you put normal polyfiller on, has dried. Where I've built it up to kind of conceal the gaps and kind of make a bit of a slope into the movement trays, that's a little bit soft. Same up the top here, I've covered up Gandalf's. Perhaps to be expected, but there's nothing to be done for that now. I've got to move on. So my next stage is to cover it in PVA glue and put sand all over the top of it to texture it. I have to do that tonight, which is Tuesday, because I have to put the base coats on the thing down tomorrow, which is Wednesday, to allow me to dry brush it and finish it on Thursday. So there's nothing for it, I've got to do it. And I've just got to hope that even though it's a bit soft, the polyfiller, the level of PVA will kind of eventually harden everything and it'll dry out, and we'll see. Or if it doesn't and it just sinks, hopefully it'll last for the weekend. But for the most part, it was hard enough to allow me to sand it down. So I have kind of rubbed it down with some sandpaper just to get rid of some of those weird spiky bits. And kind of here, you should now see that I've still got texture around this, which is nice to add a bit of depth to the slope and to kind of merge these movement trays in. But what I haven't got is kind of lots of spikes and rivets that kind of come up when you do polyfiller. Now normally this bit I wouldn't be worried at all, because I'll just be slopping PVA glue all over the place and covering it in sand. But because of the bases again, we've got to make sure the glue and sand don't get in there. So it's actually going to be far fiddlier than normal, so it's going to take a while. So yeah, it's 1:15 now. I'm going to get stuck into it. I think ultimately if I'm done by 2:15, that'll be a good result and I can crawl off to bed. But yeah, here we go. Listening to Andy Serkis Silmarillion. Let's keep going and see what we can do. And there we go. We are done. It is finished. The sand is glued down, and I'm pretty happy with it, to be honest. There's some little bits in here, but I'm going to take it inside now and just get a kind of cocktail stick and just scrape around there and just try and make sure there's nothing trapping it. I'm also going to put one of my magnetised. I'm just going to get one of my magnetised Rise of Rohan and try hitting every block, just to check that there's nothing, nothing terrible's happened and blocking any of these or anything like that. But overall, I'm pretty pleased. I just checked the time. It's 2:20, so I was hoping to be done by 2, but it took me about an hour, which I think is pretty good, all things considered. And yeah, I'm pretty pleased with how it is looking. So the next stage, and the most important stage, is to now slap Rhinox hide all over this to be the base coat. I'm hoping to do that tomorrow morning, but it's quite thick PVA, and I think I might be better off just leaving it till the evening to do that, to try and let it dry properly. But we'll have I'll have to see if I leave that to the evening tomorrow, then I can't paint it. I can't dry brush it until Thursday. Might be alright. But yeah, that's where we are. That's the next stage. So take it inside, let it dry solidly, and hopefully go from there. But yeah, it's getting there. It's looking pretty cool. And now I'm going to bed.
And so, with the sand glued down, it was nearly time to start painting. So, in the now traditional manner, I gathered all my paints together and threw them at a table.
Oh God! Oh God! Why do people do this? Oh God!
After I'd cleaned up all the mess and replaced all of my spilled paints, I got stuck in.
So we are getting close to the end of all things. It is Thursday morning. Didn't record anything yesterday on Wednesday, but as you can see, did make some progress in that. I can't remember quite what I told you, but the polyfiller had dried. It dried alright. We sanded it down. Oh yeah, of course you did, because I did the sand on it, didn't I, on Tuesday. But the sand dried on Wednesday, and I painted it. So I've painted the sand areas, the ground areas, scorched brown to match my bases, and I painted the rocky areas dryad bark. It probably just looks brown on here at the moment. At the moment, if I just push this way so you can see it, I am a bit worried that it's nicer now. I don't think I mentioned this before, but it does look a bit like a cat at the moment. And when it was pale brown with the sand and all these dark holes, it looked like that cat that had been shot in the face 31 times. So I'm hoping that painting it, changing the colours of it, adding flock and adding 31 cavalry models to it might stop it looking like a cat. But we'll have to wait and see for that. The good news is, when I mention those colours, by the way, as ever, I'm not using the GW pots. I'm using my home-based pots that I've had mixed up to match those colours. They're super cheap. I've got some more of these this time. I think these are still £2.65 for a pot of paint that will last you loads and loads of time for scenery. So really good value. It is Thursday morning. I've had the rare treat of actually booking the day off work. So I've got the day off work, so I've got the whole day to work on it. If it was just this, I'd be laughing. We can dry brush this up in a day, no problem. I'm not worried about that. But I also, at the moment, and you've seen these, hopefully you've seen these completed on previous vlogs, but I've still got 2 riders of Rohan to do, 3 Rohan shields, and Gandalf the bloody white to finish. So all of that's got to be today. So it's going to be a kind of long day, maybe a long 24 hours really, but about this time tomorrow, and we'll say it was 10 AM, half 10, I will be packing the car, hopefully, to head to Throne Skulls. So my plan is to finish this board and the riders, kind of get all those things that have a finite end. I know exactly how many colours to do on the riders, they will finish. I know exactly what I've got to do on this, and get that finished by this evening. And then this evening, just paint Gandalf until I run out of time, because I don't know how I'm going to do him. I'm just going to keep working on him, adding layers, until I literally can't keep my eyes open. That's the current plan. So possibly the most important model in my army will be the last model painted in my army, but we'll see. So yeah, I'm going to get stuck into that, do some dry brushes in this, paint some Rise of Rohan, and try and have a kind of chilled out hobby day. But yeah, wish me luck.
And so, over the course of a very pleasant Thursday, I got stuck in. As you may have noticed, the board has already come on quite some way in these images, as I forgot to film most of the painting process. I painted the main slope to match my bases, dry brushing Mornfang Brown and a Shabty Bone over the Rhinox Hide base coat. The cliffs at the top and bottom of the board were painted following the Amon Sul guide in Quest of the Ringbearer. Starting from a Dryad Bark base coat, I dry brushed the cliffs with Mornfang Brown, Xandri Dust, Rakar Flesh and Pallid Witch Flesh, before splashing a selection of washes over the top to add some colour variety and to warm up the cliffs. Once dry, I gave the cliffs a final dry brush of Pallid Witch Flesh to knock everything back and tie it all together. This part of the process was really quick and easy, and I'm always pleasantly surprised how far these projects can progress in just a day of painting. Going from just having the sand glued down the night before to being fully painted 24 hours later was extremely satisfying. As the night closed in, I zoomed my good friend Mark Stone and chatted to him for about 5 hours whilst hobbying into the early hours. You can just about make out his overexposed face on the laptop behind me. I have to say a huge thank you to Mark for giving me some company and keeping me sane during these tough final hours on the project. When the paint was fully dry, I tilted the board back and added lots of patches of PVA before sprinkling the same static grass that I used for my bases all over the board. After leaving it to dry for a while, I tipped the excess off removed the masking tape from the frame and added the final flourishes like the staff and the banner. And with that, the board was complete, and at around 3 AM, I collapsed into bed.
Good morning, and I am delighted to say we are done. Woo! Kalukai. So, yes, indeed, it's Friday morning, the morning of that we are heading off to Throne of Skulls, and as you can see before me, our wonderful project is at last complete. I thought it'd be good to kind of have a little debrief session here to kind of chat through everything and see where we got to and so on and so forth before we wrap this one up. But yeah, so to give you some context, I believe the last time I kind of spoke to you was yesterday morning, quite early yesterday on Thursday morning, planning for a day of hobby ahead. And I got to say, it went really, really well. I had a really cool, productive day of hobby where I was quite proud of what I got done. I was really kind of focused, and it was good. And also, it was quite nice to just have a day off work and do hobby all day, even if there was a kind of impending deadline. But yeah, we got things done. So lots to talk about really. But here you can sort of see the full effect probably for the first time. So it's the first time I've seen it because I just popped the models onto it. But yeah, so where were we? Last time you saw us, the board wasn't painted. I think it was probably dark brown, maybe after one dry brush. So that was dry brushed to death yesterday, basically. And then tidied the sides up just with dried bark, and then I put static grass across the top to match my bases. So that was the kind of finished effects of the board. We can see the banner down here that my beautiful wife made. I don't think I've shown the banner off before, but Emma's contribution to there's 3 contributions, I think it's fair to say, Emma makes to Throne of Skulls every year. One of them is to not mind when basically every room in the house is taken over with mess. One of them is to not mind when I skip off for 3 days to have fun, and one of them is to do a beautiful calligraphy banner. So she smashed it out of the park again with this one of Look to My Coming at First Light on the 5th day. So she made that for me on Wednesday night, and we kind of pinned that on as always. Always like to have that banner at the bottom to kind of just I don't know, finish it off. It just seems it's just tradition for me now. And then in front of that, you can hopefully see we've got Gandalf's staff, which I think I've shown off at some point in some vlog that I was needing to paint it. But look at this. Oh, hey, how's that work? So this is the range ruler, the measuring stick, Gandalf's measuring stick, which I painted. This was surprisingly annoying, trying to paint this kind of pure white and get it to look good. But it's come out alright in the end. And I was going to put it like here on the cliff. If you remember my Army of the Dead board, I might have shown you this before in the vlog. Sorry, I've been filming this over weeks and weeks and weeks. But if not, I'll pop it up here. When I did my Army of the Dead one, I hung Anduril for Aragorn on the front of that cliff face with the banners on either side of it, and I was going to do the same thing here. And when Emma was kind of sizing up the banner, she said, well, hang on, I think I need all that space for the banner, so why don't you put it down the front? And is this going to work? Oh, what do you think? That feels like it's on that one, but it feels like it might not be on this one. Well, maybe it is. And it's just like, why don't you magnetise it? I was like, okay, I've been playing with magnets, why not? So yeah, I popped that on, and I've got to say, I really like it. I really like that kind of strip of white along the black frame. I think it sets it off really nicely while not taking away from the space of the banner. So that was cool. And that's my second of those measurers that I've got painted up. I bought them when they came out, and just every now and again I find one in a project, so who knows if Sting or Gimli's axe or what else is there? Glamdring's in there, I think, isn't it? And the Witch King's sword, maybe. Who knows if they'll ever get done for future projects. But I quite like this idea of having them in the tank and kind of painting them up for this kind of thing. So that was that. That's kind of the stuff on the board. I will also show you around the back of it. Can I spin it? Yeah, I think I can trust myself to spin it here without causing a massive disaster. Let's have a look. Hopefully you can see there, and we need to put it back, I think. So there's the back of the board at the moment. And again, I think I've shown you bits of this throughout, but just to talk you through it, there is now this. We have a piece of hardboard here, which kind of lifts off, and inside here is a tray that contains all my dismounts, and I can also put my dice on it and stuff, so that's pretty cool. I've got a storage container in there. I'm not going to try and slide that back in from this angle, but that's in there, which I was quite pleased with, so I'll be able to store whatever I want in there, which is kind of cool. That drops that down there. And the point of this is just so that if I'm carrying it and I kind of tip it back a bit, anything that's in there doesn't fall out. So that was pretty cool. So yeah, that's the kind of you get an idea there of the size of the board and the scale of it and everything. But pretty cool. You've seen it being built, but it's just polystyrene structure really with a big hole in the middle. But pretty pleased with that. So that was the board, and the board was finished yesterday. Actually yesterday, so like Thursday evening or something. I also had to paint 2 more Riders of Rohan yesterday, which I did. They're on here somewhere. I think they're down the front on grey horses, just following the same scheme I did. You will have seen them completed in a vlog. I don't know, at least a week ago in the second Road to Throne of Skulls vlog. But for me, as I'm sure I've explained in multiple places in those previous 2 vlogs, everything ended on the same day. My point of doing these 3 vlogs in this order was that you would kind of get, let's do the one with Eomer and Gandalf. And I started that 6 weeks ago, I think, and then we'd finish the Eomer and Gandalf vlog and upload it. And then I would do the Riders of Rohan and then finish the Riders of Rohan vlog and upload it. And then I'd do this board and finish this board and upload it. And as it turns out, all 3 vlogs finished on the same day. So even though you've probably got this idea of it if you've watched the previous 2, but even though they've been released in order like a week apart, they're all finishing on exactly the same day. So there's no way I could have got the Heroes vlog up. The vlog wasn't late. I couldn't have got it up before Throne of Skulls because it was, that Heroes vlog, which you probably saw 2-3 weeks ago, was finished yesterday, basically. They're very confusing, but let me know in the comments if you liked that style of things. Is it if you followed these kind of Throne of Skulls vlogs in the past, is it good to have the kind of one about heroes, one about warriors, one about the board, as opposed to the kind of idea where there's a few of them, but they're all about everything, and it's more there's less jumping back and forwards in time. Just let me know, I'll be curious. But yeah, so I finished those 2 Riders of Rohan yesterday, which was cool. I then had to do all the base rims on the latest 5 Riders of Rohan, and then I had to do all the static grass on the latest 5 Riders of Rohan as well. So yeah, got that done. I also then, in terms of giving myself jobs that I really didn't need to give myself, I went back to my original Westfold Red Shield riders who had been painted with kind of blood red shields. It would have been blood red back in the day, and I just went over them with corn red just to dull them down a bit and to match the new ones I did. So they're a little less garish. So that was another job, and then I think that was all the jobs. I've actually deleted my list. Let's have a look. I've got a photo of it here, of the to-do list that I had yesterday. Paint Riders Rohan, base rims, static grass, display board size, banner, staff, maybe I was going to staff shields. Oh yeah, shield. I also had to do 3 Rohan shields, which I've shown you in one vlog or the other at this point. Sorry, I've honestly forgotten if it's in the Riders of Rohan vlog or if it's in this one. But there were 2 missing shields from Riders of Rohan, so I painted those yesterday, and I painted Eomer's shield yesterday and popped that onto him as well. So yeah, that was cool. And then the final job was Gandalf the White. So Gandalf the White was the... I know I've talked about this before in the Heroes vlog, and sorry if I'm repeating it, but at the moment I haven't done all the sign-offs for the other ones, so I don't know what I've got to say. But Gandalf the White was the oldest model in this project. Yeah, so I started painting him on the 5th of June 2020, and I was painting him on that. That was on a stream. That was on episode 11 of Battle of Strings of Middle-earth. It was Horse Week, and I started painting him. And Logic says he was probably started a bit before that, so he might have been assembled in May or whatever. But let's say June 2020, because I know then. So I was painting him then, and I hated it, and I was just painting him for fun at the time, and I absolutely hated it. And so it was really good, as I said at the start, to use this project. I certainly said this at the start of the Heroes vlog, to kind of get that model done. And the idea that not only did I start painting him 3.5 years ago, but he was the first model then started for this project when I came back to it, him and Eomer. And Eomer just, I smashed Eomer out and really loved it. And the idea that Gandalf was then delayed and delayed and delayed until yesterday is just so typical of that model. And he was the last thing I did. Everything else was finished. The board was completely finished. and I had this wacky idea. You might remember that I put a to-do list up on the GBHL of what I had to do yesterday, and the last thing I did was Gandalf. And I know that might seem mad, but everything else had a finite end point. Where I was like, everything else will be like, right, these Riders of Rohan are done, they're finished, the staff is magnetised, the banner is on. Whereas I thought with Gandalf the White, he's never going to be finished. I'm always going to want to keep going back to him. So my logic was leave it as late as I leave it till the last thing, and then just work on him in every spare minute I've got. And as it turned out, I think realistically, yesterday I had 3 hours less than I needed ultimately. So my plan, and I think I might have said this on the last clip last time, was that I'd be finished with the project by 9 p.m. and then I'd work on Gandalf. And as it turned out, I started working on Gandalf at 1 in the morning, which is a bit dreadful. I should say at this point a massive thanks to Mark Stone, who I zoomed last night from about 9 p.m. till about 2:30 in the morning. He was working on his Throne of Skulls project as well, and we just hung out for 5.5 hours chatting, and sometimes not chatting, sometimes just painting in silence near each other. It was quite nice, just a bit of solidarity. And he was making he decided to make a display board at like midnight, like which was cool. It came out really well as well. So well done to him. But he was there, and at 1 in the morning, I was like, right, I need to start working on Gandalf. And I got to say, I tried to paint him several times in the last 3 years, hated it. I came back to him, I'm not sure if I filmed a clip of this in the Heroes vlog at the moment. I came back to him a few weeks ago and did an hour on him, hated him, thought it was better, but still hated it. And then last night, so I was dreading it. And I got to say, last night, it just kind of came together. I really needed it to, and it just sort of worked. The colours just worked. And as I will have said to you in a hobby vlog a few weeks ago, he's not perfect, but he's significantly better than he is, and I'm happy to finally sign him off. So that Gandalf the White, who was begun in June 2020, was the final thing, the final piece of the jigsaw for Throne of Skulls that I got finished, and he completed the project last night. So yeah, there we go. That's what I did yesterday, and I am really chuffed. I'm chuffed with what I achieved, and I am pleased with the finished result. It's one of those things where every time, if you remember Erebor last year, there's always something I compromise on. I had all those treasure chests last year and I just didn't get them painted. And with the dam, when I did the Isengard dam, I was going to do machinery, like Isengard machinery over the top, and I just ran out of time. And I got to say, on this project, I've done everything. There's really nothing that I am missing from it. I thought the staff was going to be the sort of thing that would get left out. You know, I'll be like, don't, you know, I didn't quite make it, never mind, no one will miss it. And the only thing that I'm not sure if I would have said this at the start of any one of these 3 vlogs, but I had this idea 6 weeks ago that I might have enough time to basically give some of my old riders a glow up. I thought that potentially if I was finished a week in advance early, I could take particularly the heroes like Erkenbrand, the captain and the banner bearer, and just give them a few extra highlights, a few extra tidy ups, and then maybe even get all my Riders of Rohan and give them another cloak highlight, or all my Riders of Rohan and give them another horse highlight, and those sort of things. And that clearly I ran out of time for, and that's not the end of the world. It doesn't really matter, but that's one of those things where I'm like that's good. I'll take that. If that's the only thing I didn't get done, I think that's a pretty good job. Job well done. So yeah, overall, very pleased with how everything went, and I'm really pleased with the effects. Like, I hope I've been panning around this, but you can hopefully see there. If I do that, is that giving you the kind of side on? You get the idea of the slope, how big it is. It's cool. I started kind of this project in a way back, as I said right at the start, back in April 2020. On the GBHL, when I started making that first vlog about how I was going to make this board for the GT, and it didn't happen. And so there's part of me that's really proud to have done this and finished this, and it felt like kind of unfinished business. You know, the back of my head, it's always been like, oh, I remember you wanted to do that slope thing and see if you can make it work. And so this field between Gandalf being painted started in June 2020, and that old project being from May 2020, this feels really cool to have actually got it done, and I am very happy with it. I left all the models on it overnight and none of them fell off. I don't know why they would fall off, but It's just, I know it's magnets and I know it's physics and stuff, but there's just part of me that is terrified about this, but it seems pretty stable. The models don't seem to go anywhere, so it's pretty cool. And I think it looks mega. I don't think I've seen anyone do this over the years. In a way, it seems like quite an obvious idea, but I'm sure someone's done it at some point, but I just don't remember seeing the kind of the hill idea before. And so, yeah, I'm quite excited, really. But there we go. That's the kind of project. Now, of course, my thing with Throwing Skulls is always that I'm hoping for a Best Army nomination, and as you know, I was kind of disappointed last year when I didn't get one. With this one, I am hoping for one, but I genuinely, I don't necessarily think it should get one, if that makes sense. Like I'll be very delighted if I do, but it's just a hill with some old Riders of Rohan on it. Do you know what I mean? So it's one of those things that's like, I've already seen so many teasers of so many stuff, and it just looks like the hobby level for Throwing Skulls this year is going to go off the charts again. It's like everyone is up there going, yeah, it's just amazing. It's like an arms race every year. It's brilliant. So I'm hoping for a Best Army nomination this time, but I'm not expecting one, if that makes sense. So we'll keep our fingers crossed. As always on these vlogs, that's what I hope for. That's the point of doing the display board for me, to try and get a Best Army nomination. And so we'll see how well we succeed with that when we head off to the tournament. And I think it's really hard to say, because I'm trying to wrap up this vlog without having wrapped up the other two vlogs at the moment and knowing what I want to say. But I think that's kind of it. That's the project. I'm delighted with it. I am genuinely really, really happy with how it came out. It's what I pictured in my head, and it's all come together nicely, and it's not been too stressful. I did go to bed at 3:30, which can grant you is a bit rank, but the night before I went to bed about midnight, so you know that wasn't too bad. It hasn't been night after night after night of hell by any means, and I've managed to get about 5 hours sleep, which is probably all right. So I'm feeling pretty good at the moment. I'm feeling pretty fresh, and I'm pretty excited about the thing. So there we go. This is the Road to Throwing Skulls Part 3. I hope you've enjoyed it. There will be a Part 4. I'm going to do an event review because I love Throwing Skulls so much. At this time, obviously, it's before I went. I've got no idea how it goes, but I will do an event review whatever happens, because I love it so much. And there are other things that you haven't seen, which I'll only be able to put in a vlog after the time of it. So you know, let's think, you know, maybe what I might look like, and so on and so forth. Yeah, so there will be a Part 4 looking at the event review, but I hope until then you've enjoyed these 3 videos looking at the hobby aspect of my entry for Throwing Skulls this year. It's been a lot of fun to document it, and it's nice having the record to look back on in the future. So yeah, all the usual stuff, really. If you're new here, please, and you enjoyed it, please subscribe, and please leave a comment. Comments are the only thing that matters to me on this channel. It's lovely to interact with you, and I do try to reply to all of them. So please drop a comment below just saying what you liked about the vlog, what you didn't like about the vlog, what you liked about the project, so on and so forth. It's always great to hear feedback. We've got our little Patreon link down there if you want to join our awesome B-Sign family. We'll be coming back at the time of recording. I mean, you're going to see this probably in mid-December, but at the time of recording, we're definitely hoping to do 2 streams in December, our 20th anniversary of Return King and our Christmas one. So hopefully you'll be joining us for those. If not, when you see this, join us for our next live stream where we all hang out together and paint. We've got our affiliate link down there for 7th City Collectibles. That you can go and kind of help if you help out a local business, help out some of our friends, and also it helps out the channel if you pick up anything from there. And that's probably it, isn't it? I think that's the last thing. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this, and now all that remains is for me to go and get ready for Throwing Skulls and get dressed. So just pop this on. Ah, there we go. Lovely. Where's the other bit?
Now, some of you may remember that way back at the start of the video, I mentioned that I did have an idea for how the sun would be incorporated into the back of the board. I said, and I quote, that the sun will be at the event. But since then I've not mentioned it, despite my claim that the board is now finished. Well, you might also have noticed that I've not said much at all about my fancy dress for the event either. Well...
next time on Battle Streets in Middle Earth.